My name's Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian Financial Channel. It is Saturday, January the 24th of 2026. We closed yesterday at an all-time record high on the silver market at $103.08 on the spot market. And so all-time nominal high, we really closed very close to our all-time intraday high of $103.51. And so we're in new territory. We don't have a top yet because we have not yet backtraced it all. I suspect we'll do that before too long, maybe as early as Sunday night when the overseas markets open. But for right now, we are in rarefied air. We've never seen this before in nominal dollar terms. And so it's been quite a ride. I thought I would discuss a little bit of where we've been this last year. And then I wanted to talk about some of the problems that we might be facing as far as trying to sell some of that silver, if indeed we're wanting to take a little profit at this point, but also some places that we might go to purchase silver, find some silver that's closer to spot or maybe even below spot. And so we're going to look at a lot of different things today, but I wanted to look at the history of this past year anyway, of where we've been and how rapidly we have achieved this mark. Early in January of 2025, we started the year around $29, $30 an ounce. And we really stayed at that point until about the first week of April. There was not a lot of movement from January to April. That's something to keep in mind. Sometimes this happens, and we're in January right now, so who knows if that will happen from this point on. It certainly hadn't happened from the first of the year until now, so I'm not suggesting we're going to somehow mirror last year's dead prices, because we certainly have not done that so far. But about the first week of April, we started a climb, a steady climb from $30 until July the 23rd, we hit a high of $39.53, nearly the $40 mark. The $40 mark is significant because we've only been above the $40 mark twice in history at this point. Once in 1980 during that run-up, and then in 2011. And neither time did it stay above $40 for very long. And so this is significant. Again, on September the 1st, we go over the $40 mark, and we have stayed there ever since. By September the 25th, we went over the $45 mark. And then on October the 10th, we actually penetrated the $50 mark. Kind of a magic number for those of us in the silver community. It had hit $50, went over that a little bit in January of 1980, but it actually closed below the $50 mark that day, and then it just kind of dropped off the edge of the earth. It didn't really stop until it hit about $15, and then it kept on the next several years down to a point where it was actually around $4 for a while, usually in the $5 range. So this was significant. We hit the $50 point, but we didn't just plummet. On October the 17th, we hit an all-time record nominal high of $54.49, and then we just kind of backfilled a little bit. We went down, I think, as far as maybe $9 an ounce, but then by November the 13th, about a month after this point, we had a high of $54.39, and so we had kind of a cup pattern that had formed after looking at it from 1980 until now. We had a cup and handle pattern that had formed. A lot of people talked about that, and in fact, this is something of a significant pattern, something to keep your eye on when you see that. And so after this massive cup and handle formation from 1980 until last year, we actually had another little cup and handle formation within that, and once it broke out, it did not stop. So on the 28th of November, we broke out of that cup and handle pattern, and then by December the 9th, we broke $60. And then by December the 17th, a week later, we broke $65. And then by December the 23rd, we broke $70. Just 6 days after we broke $65, and about 2 weeks since we broke the $60 mark. So about 2 weeks between 60 and 70. On December the 24th, we closed at $71.85. Obviously, we took a break for Christmas, and it was after the Christmas break that things really started to take off in the silver market. On December the 26th, we hit a high of $79.43 and closed over $79 that day, and we really formed a new channel at that point. It just kept on going up from there until we are where we are at today. And so what happened this last week? On Thursday, we broke out of a small channel we had been in since about the 12th of January. We had a low of $86.23 and a high of about $93.64, although if you look at the chart, we actually broke off of that high a couple of times, but we never settled well above it. On the 22nd, this was Thursday, we settled well above this $93.64 that had been something of resistance, and we closed at $96.06 on the 22nd. We had good volume that day, so we're over a dollar or two breakout on good volume. And so we actually broke the top of this channel, and then yesterday, Friday the 23rd, we started off where it closed at, and we really never looked back. We just kept going up. It was a massive move. We closed once again at $103.08. So this was a $7.03, 7% move. It's not the biggest percentage move we've had in the last several months, but it was a good size one. And again, in the last month, we've looked at several channels that were formed. They're nice to have because you can kind of trade within those channels things like stocks, maybe not so much the physical bullion due to the premium differences between what you can buy and sell it for. But again, we really don't have a range yet. We are in uncharted territory. Some people have pointed out we're in price discovery right now. Will this turn out to be a temporary top or a long-term top? Nobody really knows, but we do have some very strong fundamentals in place, including the big commercial players needing that silver for everything they do, from electric vehicles to electronics to artificial intelligence to solar panels. We've had a number of sovereignties come in, big nations that are starting to stack silver from a strategic perspective, and so we have a heavy demand on the commercial side. On the retail side, we have had heavy supply coming in. People were selling just hand over fist, but now that's starting to hit a little bit of equilibrium. I imagine what we're going to see is another rush of people coming in to sell. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of people who are not stackers, who don't even think about silver, but maybe they've got a tea set that their grandmother left them, or some old coins that their grandparents left them, and they're silver, and now they're thinking of silver $100 an ounce. Why not go in and trade it in? And so I think you might see an influx of silver one more time at the $100 point. I believe this is the last round number influx that we're going to have, though. After that, I think most of the silver is going to be out of the weak hand. So pay attention to these next few weeks. I do believe on the retail side, there's going to be some pretty good supply coming in. I don't think it will be as massive as it would have been had it not been steadily coming in. From the time it hit $40 on up, we've had silver coming in to the dealers in quite heavy fashion, so much so that it has temporarily overwhelmed the refineries, and a lot of the refineries aren't even taking any sort of fabricated silver, whether we're talking about 90% silver US coins or sterling silver or just anything that's not 999 fine. And in the last week, a lot of the dealers, a lot of the wholesalers got a letter from the nation's biggest refinery saying they weren't even going to be taking 999 anymore, at least not for immediate payment, unless they wanted to accept $15 under spot, which of course is a hit that nobody can really afford to take and run a business for very long. And so about the only thing that you're seeing that's really got good demand right now are U.S. Silver Eagles. I believe that's an anomaly. That's a temporary demand where you've got an unusual influx of people wanting silver, but they want it to be in a certain form. And so that's what we've got right now. What we are finding out in the silver stacking market, especially for those who have a plan to take profit occasionally, well, when you hit $100, that may be one of your marks to take profit at. And if you've tried to sell silver, you'll know that some of the local coin shops and even some of the larger online dealers around America flat out don't want your silver. They've got too much. The refineries are so backed up that they are waiting for payment right now, and they don't have unlimited funds. And so they're having to stop or at least cut back drastically what they can buy. And that is causing, for the moment, the retail market, the little guy, the ones that have 100-ounce bars and under to sell, to suffer as far as price exposure. And so if you've been planning on selling right now, you might look for a little bit of hesitation amongst those that in the past have been very eager to buy your silver, so don't be surprised. Because of that, I wanted to point out a couple of possibilities for you as far as maybe being able to sell your silver at a closer to spot price than you might be being offered even at your local coin dealer if they're a good dealership. And the first one is this one. It's called BullionStacker.com. BullionStacker.com is a peer-to-peer group. It's been in operation for about 15 years. One of my viewers, Andrew, recommended this, and then he consulted with the other members, and they didn't mind this being promoted. So if you're interested in peer-to-peer purchases and sales, go to BullionStacker.com and just find out what they have to offer. I honestly don't know what the price spreads are right now, and I don't know the specifics. They're not a sponsor of the channel. I don't take sponsors, but it is something that from a peer-to-peer standpoint that a lot of us are getting more and more interested in. They seem to have been doing this for a while. Seems to be an honest group of people, but again, I've not done business with them. You'll have to make your own determination on that. If you do deal with them and they don't know you, they will require you to either send payment in or your silver in first, depending on if you're buying or selling. Understand that in advance. Make sure you do your due diligence on it before you give them any money or your silver. But again, this does look like a legitimate possibility. Check it out and see what you think. And once you find out, especially if you do business with them, I'd be fascinated to find out how that transaction went. So please share that. But I'm in Andrew's debt for sharing this with me, and Bullion Stacker Group, that's something they didn't have to do. They're satisfied with what they have, but they also wouldn't mind if other people came in that they could trust. And so keep that in mind. And then the other one is another place I've mentioned in the past. It's Arc Silver Incorporated. They're out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I believe the name of the gentleman who owns that is Ian Everard, and he reached out and told me that they had some prices on the buy side that might be more attractive than some are finding as far as what their local dealers are able to offer them. But right now, at least a week ago, they were offering to purchase 999 silver at $3.50 under spot. They were offering to buy U.S. Eagles at $2 over spot, and they were offering to buy 90% at $6 under spot. And again, I haven't seen anything better on a national basis than that. I have not done business with them. Again, if you're interested in it, go to this website, contact Ian, and find out whether or not you're comfortable doing business and on the terms that they do business on. But again, these are a couple of possibilities. I'd be fascinated to know what your experience is if you do deal with them. I'm not recommending them. I'm just passing some information along that looks like it may be favorable to some of us. But again, you've got to develop your own contacts, your own trust, and get your own information and be certain of it. One last thing, and that's this. I've had several questions on tax ramifications. The first thing that you need to understand is that once you sell your silver and you've made a profit, that does create a taxable situation. Unless you have a business, an ongoing business where you buy and sell on a regular basis and you've set it up in that way, you're going to have to pay capital gains tax. I think the cap on that's 28%, but I'm pretty sure that even for precious metals, that your capital gains rate is going to be with your regular tax rate. So if you're in a 15% tax rate, I believe that's what you're going to have to pay on the profit portion of your silver. So if you bought it at $30 an ounce and you got $70 an ounce for it, then you're going to have a capital gain on that $40 per ounce at whatever tax rate you're at. I would check with your accountant on that and check the IRS site and make sure you're doing it correctly. Now, if you're like me and you have a business, I've been doing this now as a business for 25 years or nearly 25 years. Remember, if you do set it up as a business, you're not just paying your regular tax rate, but you're also paying self-employment on it. You can, however, deduct your expenses. If you've got mailing expenses, if you drive any distance to go sell your coins or to purchase them, then that can be deducted. If you've got a business, you'll understand all that. I would contact an accountant for this. The other thing is make sure you use the same accounting method each time. I use last in, first out because I have accumulated silver that I want to pass on. And so the stuff I bought years ago at a lower rate, I don't want to be paying taxes on that as I sell it now. And so I do it last in, first out. And so if I've bought silver this year at $70 an ounce and have sold it for $80 an ounce, well, I've got a tax hit on that, but it's much more attractive than if I had to go to the first in, first out method where silver I might have bought for $15 an ounce had to be taxed for the profit on that. And so, again, you need to consult an accountant for this. Make sure you're doing it right. The IRS has some pretty good information on their site, but you are going to have to pay taxes on any profit on that. Don't try and get around that. Just accept the fact that when you make a profit in any investment, that it is going to be taxed. You don't have to pay any more in taxes than you owe. There's nothing honorable about that. So figure out what makes the most sense. Discuss it with your accountant and he'll give you some good advice on that. So anyway, where are we at? We're at all-time record highs. What's the top? Well, we don't have a top in place yet. We are in price discovery. This $103.51 mark may turn out to be a top. It's certainly, I guess, technically a temporary top, but it hasn't been tested yet one way or another. Monday will start to reveal that, but again, we're in some pretty rarefied air here. It is something to enjoy. If you need to take some profit right now, or if you need to pay some bills right now, then go ahead and sell some. You've made a good profit. That's what silver is for in the first place. But for that part that you're intending on hanging on to as insurance or savings, don't let it go just because it hits a round number unless you intend to take a little bit of profit off the table in the first place. So we've talked about this a lot. You need to make a plans. Do so on the weekends when the market's closed, I believe is the best time. And then you go by those plans as the week unfolds. That's the video for today. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. If I've misspoken in any way, I'd sure like to know about that. Again, I'm not trying to give any financial or tax advice or any recommendations for the way you buy and sell, but these will give you some ideas for you to explore and determine if it's the best thing for you or not. But let me know what you think in the comments. I always appreciate that. I certainly appreciate your watching, and I appreciate those of you who have subscribed. But until next time, I hope that everything continues to go well. Get you a plan, go buy it, take a deep breath every once in a while. Appreciate your watching today. We'll see you next time. God bless.